It is a little known fact that yoga first began in Africa, in Egypt. These young Egyptians, that is the Kemites of northeastern Africa, were educated in a system of higher knowledge known as the mystery system by Egyptologists. They had to acquire a high level of competency in yoga before they were considered mentally and spiritually prepared to master the rigors of mathematics, engineering, medicine, astronomy, astrology, architecture, literature, religion, ethics, and physiology. According to the book The Mutu Nuta by Ra-Nefer Amen, these ancient Africans migrated to India and became what are now known as the Dravidian Indians. They passed on teachings and spiritual practices that later evolved into Hindu beliefs and yoga practices. It is in Hinduism we find various types of yoga, and within its origins, it has always had a religious connotation to it. In a yoga book called a Kundalini, it is stated, the ultimate purpose of both asanas and pranaya is to purify the nadis or nerve channels so that prana can freely flow through them and to prepare the body for the raising of Kundalini, the supreme cosmic energy which leads the yogi to a state of God consciousness. Though ignorant to the majority, the true attainment for those teachings, the practice of yoga, is for a person to recognize that they are a divine one within themselves. All this boils down to self-worship, one recognizing that they are gods. A common greeting that they use to greet one another by those who practice the depths of yoga is Namasate, and that means in Hinduism, I bow to the divine in you. This lie, where men believe that they are really gods and they can control their own reality, stems from the father of all lies, who is known as Satan. In the beginning, Satan deceived Eve, telling her, "Ye shall be as God, knowing good from evil." This is a twisting of the word of God and is none other but spiritualism. And today, Satan has plagued the world with the same deception. And like Eve, even many professed Christians have fallen for the deception, as today we see the yoga of the West becoming trendy, glamorous, and highly fashionable. 30 million people are practicing yoga in the United States alone. Yoga studios are popping out like mushrooms all over the landscape. Despite the fact that much of the emphasis of Western yoga is on the beauty of the form and perfection of the pose, the philosophy and meaning of yoga is still taught in most classes. However, the tendency in the West has been to dissociate Hatha yoga from its source, which is an intimate part of the whole Hindu religious system. As a result, many practitioners see yoga primarily as a technique for improving fitness and flexibility or reducing stress, and don't recognize yoga is not just merely an exercise, but indeed a religious practice. The real purpose of yoga is to awaken the Kundalini spirit, which is often associated with a snake. No surprise there. It is often associated with a snake to move into your being and take possession of your body. There is no denying yoga exercises have clear physical benefits, but do people really know what they are getting themselves into? Can yoga be separated from its religious, ancestral roots? In many of the yoga studios, there are altars made of statues, posters, and images of Nash, the elephant god, Hanuman, the monkey god, Shiva, Krishna, Kali, Durga, Shakti, Buddha, etc. In many classes, a ritual bow in front of the altar is a routine practice before and or after the session. Often 1 or 2 mantras repeating the name of gods will be chanted and incense burned as part of the ritual and worship of yoga. Note that the Word of God clearly warns us against mantras and repetitive prayers, because we are told, "But when you pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking." Matthew 6:7. The term yoga comes from a Sanskrit word which means yoke or union. Practicing yoga is yoking yourself to the Hindu gods, whose primarily root stems down to Satanism. For the Word of God tells us that there is no God apart from Him, and all the others are just false gods whom Satan has conjured up. He is the one that began this whole form of self-worship which we see plaguing the world today, where there is this common talk of self-love. I, how I feel. It's about what I want. It all stems from Satan, who is the author of self-worship, for he boldly proclaimed that he will be like God. And this belief he is plaguing the human world with today. This is none other but spiritualism, which is self-worship. A series of yoga poses called Salutation to the Sun are a bowing down and worship of the sun. The sun worship is a pagan practice common to many ancient civilizations. Yoga asanas are prayer movements as to the many gods of the polytheistic Hindu religious system. They are offering to the 1,000 Hindu gods. And many of us know where sun worship reached its heights. It was in the ancient world, in Babylon, with Nimrod, whose genealogy, interestingly enough, can be traced down to Ham, his grandfather, who was an Egyptian. And sun worship, self-worship, was rampant in those days. And it's the same today. It's just that Satan has clothed it in this deceptive guise. It was this movement which originally began in Egypt, spread to Babylon, and the apostasy was almost nationwide, hence why God confounded the language. However, this form of false worship spread to all parts of the world, which we see through the mother-son worship, which is common in most religions today, and the honor of Sunday worship, which is also a pagan tradition which many professed Christians also follow, all worshipping on Sunday. The reality is yoga is no different, and it also goes back to sun worship. The yoga poses are in honor to the sun god, and with the enforcement of Sunday worship, which is soon to come to the world in full force, and the spiritualistic activities of yoga, it is Satan's aim to once again revive the old ancient Babylon worship in order to cause the world to once again follow this mystery ancient religion and obliterate Christianity in its purest form. It all boils down to ecumenism, and yoga will be used to play an important role in this. The implication of yoga is that God is to be found in and through the mortal body and nature instead of through the eternal spirit. This is known as pantheism, and pantheism is a belief shared by many New Age belief systems. This is what John Harvey Kellogg was trying to bring into the Seventh Adventist Church once upon a time, which Ellen White rebuked heavily as the alpha of apostasy. And interestingly enough, pantheism also happens to be a core belief of Hinduism. Pantheism is a belief which identifies God with the universe or regards the universe as a manifestation of God. This concept holds that the Creator and the creation are one and the same, and that the Creator did not precede the creation. The truth is, God lives in a different dimension that has nothing to do with the universe He created. Yes, God is not separated from His creation. He is, indeed, omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. But it is important to understand that creation cannot be greater than the Creator. The concept of pantheism, the worship of many gods, is consistent with the core belief of Hinduism and most New Age practices. In this belief, the worship of many forms of the created world has taken the place of the worship of the Creator. The natural world, the stars, the planets, animals, and humans have become like gods and are the object of idolatry. That idolatry is indeed an abomination to our Father in heaven. We are told, "You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. Do not turn to idols or make for yourselves any gods of cast metal. I am the Lord your God. The idols of the nations are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths, but do not speak. They have eyes, but do not see. They have ears, but do not hear, nor is there any breath in their mouths. Those who make them become like them, so do all who trust in them. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. Little children, guard yourselves from idols." Yoga is none other than a product of Egypt, which all boils down to self-worship. And the Lord tells us in Leviticus chapter 18, verse 3 to 5, "After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, shall ye not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, shall ye not do, neither shall ye walk in their ordinances. Ye shall do my judgments and keep my ordinances to walk therein. I am the Lord your God. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and if a man do, he shall live in them. I am the Lord.